Howdy riders, welcome back to Ride Between the Wines Virtual Edition. Thank you for joining me again. This week we're talking to not one but two winemakers from Pine Ridge. So Michael Beaulac as well as Colleen FitzGerald, Napa Valley. Fantastic wines that we're drinking and talking all about, so enjoy that. And then at the end of the episode, we'll be talking with Sean Moore of BLD, and we'll learn exactly what that stands for and how delicious it is. So buckle up, let's ride.
The world we live in is an amazing one, full of passion, wonderment, and of course, fine wine. This is the story of one man's journey to fully understand and appreciate that world. So kick the tires and light the fires. It's time to ride between the wines.
It's Burgundian in style. Just a whisper of cherry.
Very nice legs.
This is so perfectly balanced.
Such an old world style.
Is this laced with tobacco? A total fruit bomb.
I say, Sir Ponce!
Well, welcome back to Ride Between the Wines. This is the very first virtual podcast, or maybe any podcast, where I've had two people with me, double the winemaker fun. So this should be very exciting. So we're talking Pine Ridge today, and I have both Michael Beaulac. Colleen just told me, and I was so close. Head winemaker, and then Colleen FitzGerald, assistant winemaker for Pine Ridge. So welcome. Hello.
Hey there. It's great to be here.
Yeah, we're very, very excited to have this. I love selling your wines. They're very.
Thank you.
The two that we're tasting are the Chenin Blanc Viognier, I think, is by the glass all over the place here. It's so delicious, especially right now because it's as hot as could be right now. So it's very refreshing. And then the cab is definitely a staple. But if you guys don't mind, kind of maybe start with Michael and just give me, your history, how you got to Pine Ridge, how long you've been there and that kind of stuff. And maybe if you want to touch on a little bit of the history of Pine Ridge before we get to Colleen, that would be fantastic.
Okay. So I'm a native of Vermont, and I moved out to California 31 years ago because I wanted to get in the wine business. I was in the restaurant business in Portland, Maine, and Tim Murphy, who owned Murphy Good at the time, jokingly offered me a job, and I said sure, and moved out and was a cellar out there for a number of years. It's been a great career. I really enjoyed what I've done. I was at Murphy Good for 9 years and started their Pinot Noir and Zinfandel program. Then I moved over to Markham Vineyards in St. Helena for a little while. Then I was at St. Superi for 8 years there, making a lot of Sauvignon Blanc, which I love. And we only make a tiny drop of it now, so it's really irritating to me. And I've been here for 11 years now. So 31 total harvests. So I've been doing it for a little while and love what I do. And Pine Ridge has been around for just over 40 years. We started in 78, I think it was. We're in the middle of the Napa Valley, heart of Stag's Leap District. We own 160 acres and 5 different AVAs. We make Cabernet from Caneros, Howell Mountain, Rutherford, Oakville, and of course Stag's Leap. So my focus is really on Cabernet and all things red for the most part. And then we have Colleen, who likes to think she is in charge of the Chenin Blanc Viognier program. Colleen?
I manage it. It all works out, except everybody always thinks that I'm in charge of all of our whites. So that little droplet of Sauvignon Blanc that Michael makes
really irritates me.
But yeah, I'm Colleen FitzGerald. I'm the assistant winemaker for the Chenin Blanc Viognier program. I've been at Pine Ridge. This is going to be my 8th harvest here. I was a lab intern for 2 years and then became the enologist, and now I'm an assistant winemaker. So and that's been a majority of my experience. I've done 2 harvests outside of Pine Ridge, and so my majority of my experience has been at Pine Ridge.
Oh, that's awesome. That's cool. Well, so I kind of want to, I guess we'll kind of go over it when we talk about the 2 different wines. but Stag's Leap, maybe direct this to you, Michael. The owners who actually opened up Pine Ridge 40 years ago, you said this is the 40th anniversary, they opened up before Stag's Leap was an AVA. Is that accurate?
That is correct, yeah. So they started the winery in '78, as I said, and it's been an AVA for 26 years, I think it is now.
Okay. And were they?
And Gary Andrus was instrumental in getting the AVA recognized.
That's what I was wondering, was if they actually played a role in it. Yeah, well, that's fantastic. That's very cool. Sorry, I've been running around a lot today. Well, could we jump right into the Chenin Blanc Viognier, and you kind of take us through it and tell me a little bit about the grapes here, where they're grown versus Stag's Leap, and what Clarksburg is.
Yeah, so the Chenin Blanc grapes, we celebrated our 25th anniversary of making this blend. It's actually this year in 2020, I believe, right, Michael?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then, so this wine kind of started, the Napa Valley used to be a lot of Chenin Blanc used to grow a lot of Napa Valley. Pine Ridge was making a Chenin Blanc, just a straight Chenin Blanc, and Gary Andrus, the founder, was a huge Francophile, and so he went home one night before he was going to bottle a Chenin Blanc, and he decided, and he was drinking a Viognier with dinner, and was like, "Oh my God, this would go great with my Chenin Blanc." And so then the day before he was going to bottle, he sent all the cellar guys out with some money and cash and bought every single bottle of Viognier in the Napa Valley. Tossed it in the tank, and then that's where the 80/20 Chenin Blanc Viognier apparently first came
finished
from.
bottles. That's fantastic. How fun!
Yeah,
is that?
completely illegal. No way you're supposed to do that.
Is Chenin Blanc and Viognier, is that a two grapes that we see anywhere together in the same? Is that something that happens much?
It's not. We're one of the only people that make that blend. They come from two different regions in France. Chenin Blanc coming from Loire, and they're not thrown together very often in France. They grow in completely different climates. So,
What is the blend now compared to the original blend?
I don't. Do you know what the first blend?
I don't know what the first blend actually was. I'm guessing it was pretty small if they're opening up bottles and dumping them in. And, each year he's added more. And now Colleen is doing usually a blend of like 80 Chenin, 20 Viognier. Kind of the target.
And from the winemaker standpoint, what does each of those lend to the blend?
The Chenin Blanc, I think, really. Oh, my lights went out. The Chenin Blanc really gives that acidic kind of backbone, a lot of pineapple, lemon, and then the Viognier is really more of that stone fruit, kind of those floral characters. And those really come from where they're grown. So the Chenin Blanc is coming from Clarksburg, which is really the best place to grow Chenin Blanc in California. If we don't use any Napa Chenin Blanc anymore, just because Clarksburg is where it's best made. They have a very maritime influence out there, so it really allows those sugars to ripen without getting rid of that acidic backbone. And then the Viognier is more that Mediterranean climate, likes a little bit hotter, so it stays. That's out all in Lodi, so that stays a little bit hotter out there. Really gets those stone fruit flavors ripening through.
And are they picked separately, vinified separately, and blended afterwards?
Yeah, so pretty much everything's done separately. We try to, we're trying to continue driving quality up in the blend, and so we're constantly, so we kind of keep everything separate so that we can, we stay around that 80/20 blend for the Chenin Blanc, but we will, do a little bit more Chenin or a little bit more Vio, depending on what that vintage brings us and where those grapes are really shining.
Well, let's drink some.
I drink red wine.
Have any Chenin Blanc.
She wouldn't share with me.
I would have brought you a glass if you asked for one. Yeah, I'm getting these really bright acidic lemon curd, little honeysuckle, You know, from the nose, a lot of aromatics with peach, and I think the 2019 vintage is a really nice wine.
Yeah, this is delicious. It's very
Yeah, it's a-
mouth-watering. Very
Great
very
food
good.
wine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We leave that acidic backbone from the Chenin Blanc, and then we leave a little bit of a residual sugar on it. And so the kind of the pairing of the two makes it super food friendly. So by the glass is definitely where it goes well in restaurants hopefully when we open again.
Well, well, I actually was going to mention that I know that there's a little residual sugar on here, but it really, you just get it in the texture, the feel of the mouth. It's not at all. I don't think it's really perceptible as far as being sweet at all. I think it just is part of the balance.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would really call it a sweet wine. I mean, it's 5.5 grams. It's pretty light, and with all that acidity and a little bit of effervescence, that RS is really more about weight in the palate.
You know, I was going to mention the effervescence. What is that? How is that accomplished? Is that just part of the acid? Because it almost feels like it's got a little bit of something.
We do put a little bit of CO2 in the wine right before we're going to bottle it, just to kind of give it a little extra pop off the glass, help with popping those aromatics, and yeah.
Oh, I had no idea. That's so interesting. Yeah.
Hopefully when you open the bottle, you twist off the cap, you could smell it immediately. I think that's one of the fun things about opening a bottle of Chenin.
Just to get it out in the air. Yeah, I mean, the nose is crazy on it. Like, and I guess like you're saying, a lot of that is the Viognier as well. But yeah, this is delicious wine. And like I said, I've drank a lot of this. We sell a good bit of it. Is it no oak, no mallow, nothing? This is stainless steel all the way through, or?
Stainless steel all the way through, really letting those varietal characters shine. No oak, no mallow. There's, we use couple different yeasts on it to kind of pop different aromatics and different fruit flavors. But yeah.
Yeah, it's neat. I don't know if we said this. How far is Clarksburg from Stag's Leap?
It's about an hour and 30 minutes one way. Yeah, so it's about 20 minutes outside of downtown Sacramento, and it's right in the Sacramento Delta area. So that's where you get that maritime influence of all the ocean breeze coming off of the river, kind of cooling everything down at night, but keeping everything hot during the day.
Yeah, there's always a breeze blowing over there. It's kind of interesting.
It was very windy out there on Tuesday. It was like it did keep you cool, but it was definitely hot in the sun.
I keep grabbing this glass, and you know what? I keep picking up something different. And when I just picked it up, if my eyes were closed, the last sniff, this would have been a rosé. Like, I got so much melon and tropical fruits to it too. Like, there's just so many different things happening in here. Yeah. Yeah,
it's interesting. When it's fermenting, when it first starts off, you would swear it's Sauvignon Blanc, and then it kind of morphs into a riper quality, though that lime lemon doesn't really ever leave.
Mm-hmm. That's nice. You guys don't do any anything else with Chenin, like late harvesty stuff or any of that kind of?
We're not doing any late harvest. We do. We just released a sparkling Chenin Blanc Viognier. So it's made with from the same fruit, but we process it differently for that sparkling style. We made our first 1,000 cases in June, and we're already sold out. So we're looking at making 2,500 more in the next couple weeks.
Well, in like 3 years from now, I hope we can get some in South Carolina. I know we're kind of far down on the pecking order, but
we're only in 5 markets with that. So it's in California, Colorado, Minnesota, Massachusetts, and Florida.
It's not even in Vermont? Come on.
Not even in Vermont. Unless I carry it there.
Yeah. Gigi might be able to sneak you up a bottle from Florida.
Gigi, we got to talk about Gigi. All right, so Gigi, I know that you're watching this. Solid shout out. So Gigi, anybody who's
a salesperson in the world.
He is Greg Gutierrez is who Gigi stands for, but super cool guy. And you guys both know him very well, obviously. But I got to thank you again, brother, for putting this together. So cool. But anyways, I had I had to get my shout out in there.
That's good.
But let's move on to the cab if we can.
Yeah, so I can't see that. Is it the 16 probably?
16, yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. What I like about the Napa Cab is, I mentioned that we have 160 acres and we grow grapes in different regions. And for the Napa Cab, we're taking a little bit of that from all over. And for me, when I pick up the glass and smell it, I can sometimes get cherry, and cherry I think of as Rutherford, and then maybe there's a little bit of green pepper, Howell Mountain. The structure is Stag's Leap, and all these things come together to make this wine. And I feel all the vineyards come together in here, and I can recognize those qualities in the wines when I'm tasting it. But this is a blend. Well, I probably should have looked it up, but I'm going to say it's like 96% Cabernet. And then there's a little Tannat in it, a little Merlot. It's aged for 18 months in American oak, about 35% new oak. To me, this is just the quintessential Napa Valley Cabernet. You smell it and you pick up the depth and the structure. Color is very, very important to me on this wine, to us, sorry. I'll throw Colleen a bone on that one. And I do want to make sure.
We monitor the color every now and then.
Colleen obviously is very involved in the red wine making also.
So the Tannat, is that mostly just for tannin? What is how did that get in there?
Funny, we, I believe, and I may be wrong, are the largest growers of Tannat in Napa Valley. We have just shy of 2 acres
of
our 160 planted. And so we bring it in, and it just kind of ends up being in there. Our Tannat doesn't seem to have that much tannin, though it does have a lot of color. Mm-hmm. We ferment it or have fermented it separately. Now we generally co-ferment it, so we'll pick this and put it in with Cabernet or something else that's coming in at the same time, because it is such a small amount of fruit for us to handle.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's very interesting.
And we tend to ferment pretty quickly. We destem, we go into tank, 1 or 2 day cold soak. We're mixing the tank frequently, trying to get as much color as we possibly can. We switch over and start doing pump overs once the fermentation starts. Try to extract the right amount of tannin compared to the amount of color, and that's something that Colleen and the lab are measuring all the time for us to know how much color we have and how much tannin should we have. And so we're trying to marry those two things together, and then we usually drain after maybe 11 days in a tank. So very quick, because you used to always hear, it's 21 days in tank, at least, if not 50 days in a tank. Uh-huh. Everything comes off quick. It kind of annoys Colleen. Oftentimes they're not dry. Little RS, and they have to ferment in barrel, and you have to monitor all those things separately. So it drives the lab a little crazy.
Well, I'm terribly interested in both the lab part and how the blending works. If you're getting from several different places and you're trying to balance out more of this and that, what is you guys just all sit together, analyze everything, and then taste, and this needs more of this or that, or how does that work?
Well, what we try to do is by December following harvest, if possible, have everything finished fermentation, finished malolactic. We've racked the barrels, put them back down to barrel so that they're all clean. Mm-hmm. And then there's a group of 4 of us who taste together, and we have all the wines out. So after harvest, maybe we have 75, 85 different red wines, all our Cabernets, Merlots, Cab Franc, Tannats, whatever. And we go through and we taste those, and we each grade them. And we also say where are wines supposed to go. So we make 17 different red wines or something like that. Uh-huh. You only see 2 probably where you are, but we make all these different wines. So we have a hierarchy of where wines are supposed to end up. So we'll say, well, this wine is the very best Stag's Leap District Cabernet that we have, so it's going to go into the Stag's Leap wine. Or this wine is from Stag's Leap, but we don't think it's as good, so it's going to go into the Napa Cab. And we go around and we put blends together. I think that's, for me, it's how we make the wines and how we blend the wines. That's kind of when I earn my keep. The rest of the time, I'm not doing a whole lot. But we put the wines together.
Who cares?
Just being honest. But we taste the wines back and forth, and to me, it's always fascinating to see, okay, what does 1% do? Mm-hmm. And we're adding 1% different, which may be half a barrel to a blend, and that's the wine. And, we all go through, it's not necessarily a democracy, but we all want to hear what everyone has to say about things. And everyone's input is, we listen to everyone and go, okay, I think it needs more aromatics, or it needs more weight, or it needs X, Y, and Z. And then when we have that and we think it's perfect, we go, okay, that's good. Generally, we go back and revisit it the next day or something, put all the wines that we've made together and taste them, make sure they're the style that we want, the flavor profiles, the aromatic profiles that we're looking for, and put it together. But that process takes months.
Yes, it does.
Do you revisit it not just the next day, but weeks later? Do you revisit them again and all that? Is that why it takes so long?
The whole blending process takes a couple of weeks just to get blends out, because we're taste them for about 3 months, or 2 to 3 months before we even do any blending. And then we start looking at our blends and then kind of start narrowing down what exactly is going to make the Stag's Leap blend versus the Rutherford versus Howell Mountain. There's obviously natural deviations or natural divides in those because it's where the fruit comes from. So that's what has to be the majority. And then we play around with what little varietals, that 1%, what does that do?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
What's fun, I think, is when, if you were to visit the winery and you can sit and taste the Napa, the Rutherford, Oakville, Howell, Stags, and see how, for the most part, our winemaking protocols are the same for each of those AVAs, but to see how, because it's grown in Rutherford, that's the major difference, why it tastes different than the Stag's Leap District. Now, we use different barrels and things like that, but it's very clear that the wines are different, even though we make them all, for the most part, in the same way.
Yeah, so that's amazing considering how close they are to each other.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, all the AVAs there are so close to imagine it's that different almost across the street in some cases. That's crazy.
What's an interesting thing to do is to look at a soils map of Napa Valley, and the Napa Valley Vintners Association has one on their website, and you can go to it and you can see how, the soil that we have here at Pine Ridge is dramatically different than the soil that Odette has across the street. Uh-huh. So we have the Silverado Trail between us, but it's different worlds. And then, of course, aspect and all of that comes into play too.
Well, you don't have to give me all of them, but Stag's Leap in particular, for something that's very indicative of a Stag's Leap Cabernet, like your top tier you were just referring to, what are the qualities that separate that? You taste it and this is Stag's Leap. What are you looking for?
For me, I think on aromatics, I often come up with coffee or espresso mocha qualities, dark fruit, blackberry. We're looking for elegance and structure in all of our wines, but with Stag's Leap, a little bit more tannin, a little bit more structure, depth, which to me is when I taste the wine, I put the glass back down, I start talking, and I'm still tasting that wine.
Gotcha.
And I want all of our wines to be intriguing, which to me means you put a glass down, you're still tasting it, and you want to pick it back up and taste it again. And whether it's Chenin Blanc or Napa Cab or Stag's Leap District Cabernet, just to have that factor that makes you want to pick it up again and smell, taste, and think about the wine, even though you're with your friends or your family or whatever, you want to think about it.
Right. Oh, I agree. Well, yeah, I mean, this wine's, both wines are delicious, obviously, but I think you accomplished that. So that's great. I want to keep sipping on it. I know I've kept you guys, one or two more questions, then I'm gonna get out your hair. But can we talk a little bit about Napa Green and your as far as the sustainable aspect of your grapes?
Colleen, that's you.
I guess I should have directed it somewhere.
Yes,
No,
we
she's
are
in charge of
Napa.
it for us also.
Yeah. I'm in charge of the winery half of our Napa Green certification, and then Gustavo, our vineyard manager, is in charge of all of the vineyard side. But all of our vineyards are Napa Green sustainable, as well as fish-friendly farming. And then the winery has a winery certification as well. We really look at what we're doing to our soils, making sure that we're planting different cover crops, getting kind of those natural insects and everything back into the soil that should be there. And the winery side, we're looking at our electricity and our water, and looking at how to keep cutting those back, so we're not using more than, because winemaking uses a lot of water with a lot of sanitization, and so looking about how can we cut all of that stuff back, as well as we have looked at we're owned by Crimson Wine Group, which has dedicated to the Porto
Protocol.
I wanted to call it the Porto Project, the Porto Protocol. And one of the big driving forces that we started with that is really cutting back our glass weights for carbon emissions. And so getting glass that's grown or that's made in the U.S. and cutting back on how much it weighs, so that we're not putting more weight out there than we need to.
I had never even considered that was part of it. There's so many, this is kind of heavy, but there's so many bottles that are Napa Cabs that weigh like 30 pounds when you pick them up. I'd never even considered that.
Yeah, I forget what the number is, how many tons of glass we're saving. It's multiple tons.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? So many different things that you don't even consider unless you're actually there. Well,
even just coming down by a couple of grams on every, coming down by 50 grams on every piece of glass, if you think about how many pieces of glass are out there, it adds up.
Well, is the heavy weight just for show? Is thinner glass a negative somehow?
I think consumers just see it as a negative, but I don't think that just because, like it's the same with a screw cap versus a cork, there's, in some ways a screw cap is better than a cork, because you can, look at more of the oxygen, it's more reliable. You're not going to get cork taint, but it's just kind of perception on a heavier glass might be considered a more prestigious bottle.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, to the actual wine, there's no reason that you need to have a thicker glass or anything like that. Yeah.
No.
Not unless you're making a sparkling wine.
Right, yes.
And then you want thick glass.
Fair enough. Oh. Well, thank you all so much for your time today. I really appreciate that. You guys are doing great work, both of you. Keep it up. I think that's it.
Come and visit us as soon as you can.
I hope it's sooner than later.
Leave me.
But I absolutely will, and I appreciate it. Gigi will hook it up.
Cheers.
Gigi will.
All right. Cheers, y'all. Thank you very much.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Ride Between the Wines. On this episode that you just watched, we had the winemakers of Pine Ridge, both of them, which is very exciting. And I'm now here with Sean Moore of BLD for our local restaurant segment.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Thank you for being on. Very much appreciate it. In addition to the fact that this is a great restaurant that is reopening right now, I also include you because if you like the Pine Ridge Chenin Blanc Viognier, or if you want to try it that we spent the whole episode talking about, this is a great place to try it. Buy the glass anytime.
That's right.
But that being said, we're just going to jump right in. So this is take 5. So question number 1.
Take 1.
Take 1. Question number 1 is B, L, or D. The question is, if you can only eat one category of foods, I know they cross over a little bit, for the rest of your life, would it be breakfast, lunch, or dinner?
No, D would be the one for me.
Okay.
So our shrimp and grits, Congaree Mill here locally, South Carolina shrimp, true classic dish.
I like how you still cheated a little bit here into the D category with a dish that could also be a B dish.
Well, you got me there. We're well known on the B sides with the brunch, so I think the D side has a lot to show in its new venture in the summer menu.
I love it. Try the shrimp and grits. I've actually had them. They are delicious. All right, question number 2, we call story time. Now, before BLD, you can include BLD, but I happen to know your background and you have a lot of experience in restaurants under your belt. I know there's a lot of fun stories out there. You got one of your favorite ones you can throw at me?
So you had given me a little cheat sheet on this one and had time to think about that, but it really wasn't even a question I had to think about in my most recent work life when I owned Five Guys. One of our locations down in Mount Pleasant had just opened, and there's a patio out front, and I happened to be there right when we opened, helping get the store running and whatnot, and a golden retriever was sitting outside on a leash and broke free of the leash when the door opened and went into the nearest table and grabbed a full hamburger off the table.
Nice.
From a kid of all. So the kid was then mortified and wanting food. So needless to say, the restaurant was laughing wholeheartedly because the parents were laughing as well.
Well, right. That's just a fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
And to add to that, the dog got stuck wagging its tail at the door, eating it because the door was then shut. And the dog's owner had to sheepishly open the door and start apologizing profusely. Even though
that's
the parents
the worst.
Were, yeah.
Oh.
So.
Oh, that's adorable.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a happy, funny story. Nice. Let's move on to question number 3. Now, question number 3 is going to show you my ignorance. So,
I don't know about that.
oh, no. Give me a second.
Okay.
So born in Virginia,
Yes.
but
No, in California, but raised in Virginia.
well, either way, I'm not asking about either of those places.
Okay.
But eventually, Colorado is where you landed for a long time.
Yes,
And
yes.
I know my ignorance is I know almost nothing about Colorado.
Really?
Other than skiing, the Stanley Hotel, and South Park. So I'm going to go with South Park.
Okay.
So my question is, who is your favorite South Park character?
Wow, that's a good question.
Thank you.
That's something I definitely have to think about. As a side note, my senior year, they went to Boulder and they were graduating. I didn't know them, but it was.
Oh, Trey Stone and Matt Parker?
Yeah. So, obviously on a campus that large, if you're not in that field, you're not going to know. But, you got Big Head Todd and the Monsters. You got, South Park. I would say, in a sick little way, it might have to be Cartman.
Yeah. He's definitely the most entertaining to watch.
The way they've written his script, to be such a mama's boy, and then on the flip side be a bully, and some of his classic lines that they've written for him. I mean,
well, it's such a clever show, but Cartman really to always be like the bad guy. Then you can really always see how he's easily hurt on the inside and how he's. Yeah, I like it.
And for a show that's gone as long as it has, I mean, they still come up with some really, really good storylines.
Yeah. Sheila and I were flipping through last night, so it was on the brain looking at Hulu or wherever it was, and I was just, God, I can't believe how many seasons that they're still going.
Yeah, I mean, it's over 20 years.
Yeah. So, well, anyway, so South Park was based on a town. Have you been to that town in Colorado?
I have not. It's kind of Fairplay.
Fairplay, that's
yeah. So I know where it is. It's a little bit off the beaten path, south of a lot of the ski areas. Very, very remote, if you will.
Go for it. We're going to take a break because...
Thank you for calling BLD.
He's a working manager. All right, welcome back. Question number 4. This question's called Booze Clues. So I'm going to give you the clues, and I want you to give me the booze. Here we go. So it is a beautiful Saturday morning. We are seated out at the lovely patio somewhere here at BLD. I've just ordered my personal favorite dish, or I guess you've had my personal favorite dish, which is the Nashville hot chicken, which despite how I always want to order other things, I always go right back to that. I want to know, what is the booze that goes with those clues? What are you going to be drinking?
Booze or anything?
Any wine, beer, liquor, cocktail? What's your drink of choice?
I would have to say right now our Pine Ridge Chenin Blanc.
I did not tell him to say that, But yes, that would be. Thank you for saying that.
We've really perfected the Nashville hot chicken now. We're really happy with it, and the emulsified butter, how it stands up with our house brine chicken, and it's definitely Nashville hot right now. It's not 3-alarm fire, but it's solid and very consistent right now. So
I feel like if you get a bite of that green tomato slaw or whatever that, it kind of evens it out a little bit.
But then if you were to add that Chenin Blanc with it's Christmas, got the high acidity. I mean, it's a nice kind of counterbalance to the heat.
Yeah, I agree. Did not tell him to say that. Good work, sir. All right, and then question number 5 is always the same question, and I call it stick the landing. And for anybody who's never heard of BLD, what makes it so special? What are you guys doing here that's just so amazing?
I think we're just trying to be part of the neighborhood. Really, I feel like Columbia is coming together with the restaurants, especially the independent ones. There needs to be more camaraderie and partnership, especially coming from a town like Boulder for 14 years and watching that restaurant scene grow, to points now where Frosca was best restaurant in America from it's a small town in Boulder. So with that said, I mean, being able to narrow down and really nail down the brunch aspect that we can do in the daytime and serve that purpose, and then coming back with as a modern diner, dinner and appetizer specials and a full bar, drinks and treats that just makes us a nice modern diner.
Yeah, I love it. So obviously, I live 2 minutes from here, so this is a good place to eat. But when you walk in, one of the things that first struck me is, I mean, it really does have the modern diner feel. If you come in, you see all the tables, and you see the bar itself, and so you have an expectation, and then you're getting not just breakfast food, but all day long food, and it's gourmet quality. I mean, and then you have a full bar wine and cocktails. It just kind of it's a different concept, unlike anything in Columbia.
Yeah, thanks.
So I love what you're doing. If you haven't tried it, please definitely check it out. The food is great. The wine list is great. You can try the Pine Ridge here, as we just said. Yeah. Well, Sean, thanks so much for your time.
Mike, appreciate the time. Thanks.
And there you have it, another episode down. Thank you so much for joining me once again. Thank you to Pine Ridge and to Michael and Colleen for your time. Thank you to Sean over at BLD. Try these wines, they're delicious. Try the food, it's also quite delicious. Come back next week where we're going down under with Matt Fowles in Australia. If you like this podcast, please tell your friends. Click on my face, subscribe, share. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Till then, chin chin.
Cheers!